This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of March, Mountain Glass is offering Northstar First Quality Borosilicate rods at 25% off. Just put in the code Northstar at checkout. That's NORTHSTAR. And for all you soft glass nerds, they're offering their Soft Glass COE 104 sale double helix rods at 15% off. Just put in the code DHELIX at checkout. That's DHELIX. And for any other questions or comments, please go to mountainglass.com. That is mountainglass.com. This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 90. This is Jay Michael, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in today. With 17 years of experience behind the torch, I am as excited as always to bring you conversations with artists, sharing their stories in hopes to inspire and entertain while helping you grow your business. And today is no exception. Today we have glass artist Adam Dunn, also known as Crux Glass on Instagram and all the social feeds. He has been on the torch since 2010, but was first introduced in 2006. He has a fun story and tells us all about the trials and tribulations and really the hard work and dedication it takes to get your name out there, to find your voice in your glass, and also what it takes to go out there and do trade shows and continue to make a living with work-life balance and having a family and all that fun stuff. I definitely had a lot of fun with this conversation. He has a lot of insights into himself and to really ways and ideas that he thinks that those that are getting started or who have been in the industry for a couple of years and are really getting their feet through the door can just keep the momentum going. So hope you guys enjoy this conversation. The next episode, also number 91, I am going to be sharing, the episode basically is dedicated to the top 5 ways to get yourself set up for a budget under $1,000. I've had a lot of folks reaching out lately talking about the interest in getting set up, how to get started, where to get started, and all that kind of jazz. And I've also been seeing some folks posting on the social feeds kind of complaining about the fact that they've spent all these thousands of dollars on getting set up, and after only being on the torch for several months are getting frustrated because they feel like they're wasting their time and money. So part of that episode is also going to be dedicated to that conversation about the hurdles and the issues that we deal with as you get started and the frustrations you have to get over. A lot of fun with that. And on that same note, just wanted to give you guys a little teaser. Coming June of this year, I'm going to be launching a one-on-one mentoring classes. Basically, it's going to be an introductory into flame working, where I will take you by the hand and bring you into my studio for a 2-day intensive one-on-one class. We'll be covering all the basics of getting set up between the equipment, you're installing your studio space, your ventilation, all your lighting, gas setup, all the safety equipment, and also tools, torches, etc., as well as an introductory into flame working itself, getting you to get on the torch and understand the medium of glass. One of the reasons I'm doing this in June, and it's something I've actually been planning since October of last year, is because of the Florida heat, and I really want to get folks that are interested in doing this a really true sense of what it is and what it takes to be a glass artist, dealing with environmental issues and what have you, especially here in Florida with the humidity and heat we have to go through. It's because a lot of us that I've seen out there that get started get frustrated and quit because either they can't handle the heat or they don't want to deal with the glass or this kind of thing. Now, if you have an expendable income and you want to just do this for a hobby, then that's a little different situation. But if it's something that you think you'd want to do for the rest of your life, I find it to be beneficial for yourself as an investment to take a class or an introductory kind of deal to really fill it out first before then you go and spend all this money on setups and equipment and heartache and then figure out all of a sudden, no, this isn't something I want to do. So I'll be offering an early bird special, which will save you a couple $100s on the class itself, which I'll be announcing here next month. And I've had some people already showing interest, so I'm sure this is going to fill up quickly. I'm only going to be offering 4 classes, which is 4 weekends, so there'll be available space for 4 people. I'm also offering a couples discount, too, because I have had 2 different couples reach out to me that have slight interest in doing this together. And so we'll be offering that too, which I think was kind of a cool thing. But again, this is going to be something that we are offering a 2-day class on a weekend, which will give you a chance to come into town here. You'll get to stay with myself and my wife. We'll be also taking care of you and feeding you and all that good shit. So it's going to be a fun time. So I just want to kind of offer that and just give that to you now as a little teaser. And again, all the information will be coming very soon. WiseGuyMedia.com is almost complete. I just got a template basically through my WordPress that I found that is way more user-friendly and functional and looks a lot better. And now that I have all my shit plugged in, all I got to do is just open this template up and finish up the process and then hook up my newsletters and my signups and all that stuff, and it'll be good to go. So we'll be creating a page for this one-on-one mentoring course. Also going to be launching our mastermind groups here. I am a little bit behind on that only because I was not expecting to get into Disney on a full-time basis right now. It was kind of I'm super pumped about it. It was kind of a secondary thing that came out of nowhere. But I have become to a point where all my ducks were in a row and I was prepared to do that. But that being said, I've had a couple different artists reaching out asking about that. So I want to just let everybody know that this mastermind group I'm putting together with a couple guys, we're going to be getting that started soon, and then I will be offering the one-on-one, or not really one-on-one, but the mastermind group information, because again, the mastermind group is so important to get together in a circle of 5 and discuss issues, whether it's yourself, personal issues you're going through, roadblocks, your setups in Glass and how to market your work. Just ways to throw ideas around and ways to get an honest opinion and feedback from your peers that you are close to. And the one beautiful thing about mastermind groups is these groups that I've been a part of myself outside of the Glass world, just in the podcast space and the business space, are people that I've grown close to and feel that I can talk to them about anything. And I have. And these things that I've discussed that were personal issues of my own really were helping me. They were kind of little minor roadblocks. And they allowed me to completely get over them just because I was able to talk and get feedback from people who, again, I trust and listen to. So it's kind of a fun thing. So I just want to kind of go on about that. And just don't forget also mountainglass.com/wiseguy. You can go there and then you'll see our little banner on there with them where you can save 5% off on their starter kits. Their starter kits are already discounted because it is a group of items put together. And then if you go to the checkout after purchasing them and you just put in the code WiseGuy, you get another 5% off that. So just go to WiseGuy or just go to mountainglass.com/wiseguy and you'll see that there. And then also they have their monthly sales going on. Green Flash Glass is also on board with the sponsors. And we have a brand new sponsor we are bringing on and launching, which I'm super pumped about. He is going to be a guest on the show as well to discuss himself as an artist. He is a scientific glassblower who's gotten into the artistic side of glassblowing as well and is a tool maker, makes tables and stuff. So I'm really excited to bring him on board and share his story with you guys and also his products as well. So again, if you guys want to contact me, just go to info@wiseguyradio.com and send me an email with your contact information and insights and questions and comments that you have. Love all the emails I've been getting lately and the influx of the show. If you are brand new to the show and this is your first episode, this is going to be a good one. Again, we are featuring Adam Dunn, a.k.a. Crux Glass. You guys enjoy. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Don't forget to go to Instagram. You can check us out at Instagram. Just go to wiseguy_radio for that page there. And also my personal page is J. Michael Glass. And you can go there and check out all my work in the glass I do and some of my behind the scenes at Disney. You can also follow me on Snapchat. My Snapchat name is JB Firefall. And I give you guys even more of a daily dose of my behind the scenes at Disney, some things that we're really not supposed to share because it has signs everywhere that say don't take pictures. But you know what I say, I do it anyways because I want you all to see what's up. So just don't tell anybody. It's our little secret. Yeah. So go follow me on Snapchat. And other than that, you guys be good. Love you. Thanks for tuning in. And we will see you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Talk to you all soon. Peace. What's going on, Adam? How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you doing, Jason?
Pretty good, man. Just fighting a cold here, and I apologize to anybody out there listening if I'm sniffling in your ear and sound congested. It just, I don't know, man. It sucks. We just got all this shit going on, so there you go.
Yeah.
So before we get all kind of crazy here, if you want to give us a little bit of your background, how you got started, who introduced you to the torch, and all that good shit.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of could be a long story, could be a short, but I'll give you the sort of middle version.
Hey, man, take your time. We got all day. At least I do.
Sure. Well, I like to say that I can really attribute to me getting introduced to glass and the torch from New Kids on the Block. And
Hell yeah.
I think a lot of people in the glass world will immediately attribute that to Adam G. Back in Michigan, where I grew up and I went to college, I got the chance to meet Adam G. We went to the same school together, and he came into this coffee shop I was working at the time, and he ordered a sandwich, and his thing at the time was ordering random food. So basically, you could make him whatever you wanted. Just that was kind of his thing. And then he ordered a drink, and he tipped me, and he included a pack of New Kids on the Block trading cards in the tip jar. And I was like, who is this guy, and where did he come from? You know, I'd been working there for a while, never seen him before. So I made his sandwich, made his drink, took it out to him, and I was like, dude, I got to know what's up. Like, what's the deal with these New Kids on the Block cards? And, you know, who are you? What's your name? So I introduced myself, and both happened to be named Adam, and I was like, sweet, man. He just seemed like a chill guy. And I just, not much to put myself out there socially usually, but I was like, dude, you want to hang out later? You know, like I felt like I was asking him on a date, but yeah, so he came over later that night and walks in the door, and he's got a little gun case with him. I was like, what the hell? Like, what's this guy all about? And he opens it up, and there's this just amazing piece of glass. And he's like, yeah, I made this. I was like, whoa, man, this is crazy. You know, all the glass that I had been introduced to before that, you know, was basically, you know, whether it was soft glass, it was vases and things like that, or if it was pipes, then it was just your, you know, run-of-the-mill, cheap stuff. And I had never seen anything like that before. So anyway, we used that piece that night, and I was just blown away by it. And he ended up becoming sort of friends with the group that I was running with in that coffee shop that I worked at. Became just a good friend of ours, and we hung out in school. And I don't know, maybe 6 months later, a year later, he asked me to come down with my girlfriend at the time to see his shop. So his shop was about an hour and a half away down in East Lansing, Michigan. And so we drove down there, and that was the time I got to see a torch and see it work. And he let me make a little pendant, you know, with just this super simple technique of adding some color and clear. And I was just thought it was the coolest thing ever from that time that I saw a glass melt. And so that was that day, and he showed me, like, he worked a little bit after he let me make that pendant, and made a spoon, like an inside out spoon. And it was the first time I ever saw how, like, the color gets inside the glass. And
Rad.
I was just like, wow, that's amazing. And then after that, it was really on my mind, you know, through college. And I remember calling him one time and naively sort of asking him, hey, would you ever be interested in teaching me this? Or, you know, at the time, it just didn't make any sense at all. And there wasn't really an outlet for that because his shop was so far away and we were both so busy with school and all that. But he was pretty open to it at the time. It just wasn't really in the cards. So that was the only time I ever touched glass until I finished college. I moved to Minnesota, where I am now, Minneapolis, and was doing an internship for the end of my degree and working for this outdoor company. Once that ended, I had worked a couple odd jobs and helped open this bike and coffee shop here in town. And I did that for like 6 years. And during that time, the glass thing was still in the back of my head the whole time. And it's like, man, I just got to try that sometime. And I started doing a bunch of research, you know, online and stuff, figuring out what you need to get going, what you need to do to learn your first couple techniques, and actually talked to Adam again, and he kind of gave me a good little starter thing over the phone to just as far as like a good torch to buy and a kiln and stuff like that. And long story short, I bought starter equipment that I needed and just started it, just went after it, you know, pretty much by myself. Yeah, there's probably some more details to that
Right.
story, but
What was the first torch you bought?
first torch I bought was a Bethlehem Barracuda,
Okay.
which isn't made anymore.
Yeah.
They got the other models like the Bravo and the PMTD and stuff like that. But yeah, it was. He told me this is just a decent torch to start with. If you don't want to buy a Phantom, spend that kind of money, and it did. It got me through probably 3 years of the whole first year was learning pendant, like just practicing implosion pendants and marbles and stuff. And I didn't really try hollow work until after about a year. But it even got me through, making pinchies and spoons and then all the way to bubblers and stuff. So it was a good torch for a long time. And I actually was lucky enough to sell that to a friend that wanted to learn. And he's now actually working in my shop just a couple hours a day working on that old torch. And
Nice.
so it worked out well.
Yeah, it's a great little starter torch, and that's people always. I've been getting lately a lot of questions, people asking about, type of torches to get started on, certain tools and stuff. So that's why I wanted to ask, because I'm always curious myself, because like I started on a national when I did my apprenticeship, and then I went to like a minor bench burner.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wasn't really sure. Bethlehem was around, but it wasn't really, the internet wasn't around really much in '99. So to get around and understand who had what and what was selling and what was available was kind of difficult unless you knew somebody.
Sure.
And I remember my buddy Daniel, who taught me some of my pipe foundations. He got a Bethlehem for the first time, and I don't remember which one he got, but I know it was like he was like super torch burnt the first hour after using it. Kind of thing.
Oh, really?
It had like its own cooling system, the whole 9 yards. It was kind of crazy, but it was my first introduction into Bethlehem and their bigger torches. But
Sure.
it's always important, I think, too, to have that foundation to start small. You got to start with a softer torch, a little less heat, to really fine-tune the glass. And the fact, too, that you start off with pendants and some solid work, that also is huge in getting a foundation to really learn your material, to learn your flame settings. I mean, all that shit. It's just, and also your tools, and that, what kind of tools did you buy?
Right away, I bought my kiln and I just asked them, hey, if you have any like random graphite or anything lying around or, any starter tools you could send me, that'd be awesome. And they sent me a few things actually for free. They sent me like a little 2-inch by 3-inch, paddle. So I pretty much started with a graphite paddle, a pair of tweezers, and then I think just one octagonal reamer maybe.
Nice.
That was about it. And then the kiln and the torch. And yeah, just pretty much started with that. I remembered that pendant technique that Adam taught me 6 years previous. And it was just striping a line of color. Oh yeah, I bought like the sample pack from North Star that's got a little stick of each one of the colors in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had all these different colors to mess around with. And so I would just draw a line of color on that clear rod, fold it over and twist it up. So you end up with like that, that color twisted on the inside of the marble. And then you just put a little loop on it and call it a pendant.
Yeah.
Started with that. And then I found some online tutorials of, I think it was from like the Flow or Glassline or something that had like a flower implosion technique on there. So started trying that with solid rod, and then pretty much stuck on implosion pendants of some way, shape, or form, or marbles, turning them into marbles and doing vortex marbles. I pretty much stuck with that for like a year and tried to sell them to friends, or I did a couple little craft fairs, and like I even did a flea market kind of thing where I brought a little small oxygen tank and did a little demo and stuff and sold some pendants and marbles at that.
Hell yeah, man. That's the best way to get out there and get yourself exposed, especially if you can get it on the torch at a place.
Yeah.
And do that. It's that whole moth to the flame idea, and it's amazing. Like over at Disney, where I work on stage, I'm like right up front in the front door. And it's amazing how many people walk by and just pointing to the, pointing into the store, looking at me working, and then like 5 minutes later they're in the store.
Yeah.
It's like it's amazing. It really does draw people to you, and it's just a fascination of what's this guy doing? This bright light and the flame, and all this other shit. Plus you're in there sitting with your sunglasses on, or so they assume it's your sunglasses.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I definitely recommend that to anybody out there, that if you can obviously get permission to do it and be safe about it. I'm going to get into some future episodes talking about doing demos and this all the aspects that you should think about when doing them. Because again, it's important to do that, but it's also, besides the exposure, it's get yourself used to working in front of people, and that's not always an easy thing for everybody to do.
Right, and that's something that I'm still definitely not versed at, and actually I have some things coming up where I'm gonna be blowing glass in front of people for the first time as far as any of my new body of work or pipe making, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely, I think it's going to be a big change of environment for me because I've just been in my garage or a basement for the past 5 years by myself. But that whole craft fair kind of thing was originally, it's kind of what I thought I was going to do. I didn't necessarily out of the gate think that I was going to be a pipe maker. And part of that was because I met this guy, and that's maybe part of the story of me getting into it. Was when I was in Minnesota, I went to a music festival, and there was a guy with a glass booth set up, and I was like, wow, I've seen really similar stuff to this. You had these really big marbles and vortex marbles and dichro marbles and stuff like that. And I remember Adam had made some really cool vortex marbles back in the day that I was just super intrigued by. And so I started talking to this guy. His name is Dan Neff, and he's from Duluth, Minnesota. And we became really good friends, and he actually sold me my first K-tank to get work in. And he brought it down to me from Duluth, and he kind of gave me a little lesson on the torch, on pendants and stuff. And from then, he was sort of my inspiration, or one of the guys I looked up to that had been doing it for a long time, or for a while at the time. And I was like, well, maybe I should do this craft fair kind of gig, because he travels around all summer doing craft fairs and art shows, and even like the American Craft Council shows, and he's in some of those bigger ones. And now he owns a gallery up in Duluth, so he's really into that sort of art side of it. And so I thought I was going to do that, but then once I got into the pipe thing, it was just like, this is so limitless, and it's got this whole other side to it that was really drew me away from doing the just the non-functional stuff. So
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, man, because I know like there's a lot of politics involved in the pipe community. Just besides all the laws, just whatever. But
Right.
there's definitely seems to be a lot more politic in the fine art world out there. And like talking to Steve Seislov a couple back episodes back, and he was discussing that same thing. Like he was just tired of going to meetings and having artists that were like their shit doesn't stink and they're the best glass artists or artists in period in the world. And it was like the whole group of them were like that, and he's like, I can't deal with this bullshit, this kind of facade of these fake people that are just, think their shit doesn't stink. And then you get into our community, and it's like everybody wants to be friends and share stuff. And I can't say everybody, because not everybody does, but the majority of us are so open where it's just become this big family,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the dynamic of that is so different, I find, than the other communities out there, I guess, in a sense, in the art world. It's interesting.
Yeah, and those art shows and stuff, they're really stickler too, and it's kind of like the pipe industry, especially with the shows and stuff. It's kind of like once you get in, then you're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you sort of went through the stuff in the beginning, whether you had to get down a waiting list or just prove yourself as far as your skill. But then you're kind of like, they give you your booth next year, and not give it to you, but you sort of like guaranteed a spot if you want it.
Right.
Whereas the art shows, you got to get like jury every year, and you can work a craft show for 5 years straight, and then all of a sudden they don't let you in the next year, and it's like, wait a second, I have a whole client base around this area and stuff that come to this show and expect to see me there, and then all of a sudden I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, we deal with that here ourselves. We have a couple big main, like nationally known shows, and we've got our little core group of artists locally here that have been doing the shows for 30 plus years before our community here really started growing. And once a couple of us really started trying to get into these shows, they were almost like banning us from them because these other people had their foot in the door already, and they were really implementing the whole, no, we don't want them in here because we've been here and we don't want the competition or whatever kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Which is stupid. Where, like you're saying, like the trade shows for our industry, it's a little different. They're like, yeah, please, let's see what you got.
Yeah, and it's in our industry, the trade shows, it seems like even if you can't get into maybe the main room or something, there's always space. There's always they're doing everything to just keep growing it, to make sure that it's all inclusive kind of thing. But yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I heard
Definitely
just
a whole different world.
Yeah, I agree. And I had heard just from several different people that weren't artists that were there that were vending or that are big names in our industry, that they're finding like these trade shows are becoming more like popularity contests almost, like, but I guess what the thing was is that they were saying like the artists were segmented into different types of classifications, like the ballers and then like the advanced artists, and then like the intermediate, and then the beginners, and they were kind of like segmented in their own little groups in a sense, and like segregation almost. But the people that were being segregated, they weren't happy that they were segregated, so I'm finding, like, from things I'm hearing out there, that people aren't really happy with the trend that the trade shows are taking. So hopefully the trade shows can listen to the community and understand that they don't want to be segmented. I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't work. People don't want to be involved with these things if they're going to be segmented, if they're going to be like that segregation going on. We want to be part of it because we all want to be a part of the family. And I get it, but at the same time, there's got to be something done to really open it up, just so people aren't feeling left out, so that the new guys aren't over in the corner that nobody's going to go see, kind of thing, kind of set up. So it's
Sure.
fascinating.
Yeah, I think it depends on what show you go to as well. It's like probably what you're referring to is the American Glass Expo. And
Yeah.
Especially the one in Vegas. But I've been doing the Denver one for the past year, and we're all in the same room. I think what it is the channel, and same with Glassroots. It's all just one big room, and it's all just everybody's together. And I think what the problem with, and not the problem, but maybe the challenge with Vegas January American Glass Expo is simply that it's huge, and the organizers are trying to accommodate the glass blowers, but they're also trying to accommodate the organizers and the venue. And this year the venue had to change, and so they're constantly trying to battle with these people of like them not necessarily being prepared for what's going to happen. And so whether that's taking over an entire tower of sleeping rooms and turning those into showrooms, and then also using both of their convention center rooms. And I think this year there was a lot of challenges, and there was a lot of people that weren't happy, but you just got to remember that nobody really knows what they're doing yet, because this is all pretty new. And especially when you have to change venues, there's going to be a lot of different things that come up. And then also there's that sort of feeling of exclusivity or whatever in the main room, but it's kind of goes with the trend of the industry. And I think that it does make sense, especially because the store owners and the gallery owners, they do want a chance at those pieces that are going to be really hard to get unless they're there right away. And what they're doing is they're paying extra money to go see a preview of that room. And I understand when you're not in that room, because I wasn't in that room last year. I was in that room this year. But last year I wasn't. And I understand you're there on the first night, and there wasn't a whole lot of communication, as far as we didn't realize that we weren't even a part of the first night, and that we weren't even allowed into that other room as artists. So it was a little bit frustrating just with communication, but once you realized what they were trying to do, it made sense. And then the weekend ended up being just fine, as long as you are doing things to attract people to your booth. And if your art's worth attracting, then they're going to be there. And as far as what I can tell, anybody that's there with positive attitude and bringing good work, it's good for everybody. I mean, I haven't really talked to anybody. People get worried the first couple days or the first day maybe, because everybody is in that big room or the main room. But then they start trickling out. When they realize they can't afford everything in that room, they start going around to everything else, and then everybody gets the love too.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because myself personally have not done the trade shows yet, and I do want to go do them. I think more or less I want to go do them at first, just as a spectator in a sense, and also as media for the show. Take advantage of it in a sense. But like I had heard through the grapevine that Hard Rock wasn't, like you were saying, was not expecting what we brought to them, and that supposedly next year that they're not welcoming us back because they couldn't handle us.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I guess what I had heard, from what I hear, and I don't want to spread rumors or anything, so this is all just speculation. We were laughing about it because our industry and the artists that are in it are more or less, we're all kind of introverted in our shops, staying to ourselves. But when you get us all together and like watch the fuck out, we all break loose and let it, and have a good time. And they were saying that before our convention, they had like the porn industry was there for their awards and all that shit. And they're like, we could handle them, but we couldn't handle you guys. And I don't know if it was because of all the token going on or what the fuck, but they basically said that they couldn't handle us, which I think was hilarious, because we are a bunch of crazy motherfuckers when it comes down to it. But again, we're all so introverted in a sense and don't want to do things. Like I was saying before they recorded, it's been having trouble getting people on the show because people don't want to necessarily get out there and expose ourselves, or they feel awkward, being recorded.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was very humorous that the Hard Rock in Vegas couldn't handle the pipe industry. It's just so funny. So I'm kind of curious, it's, again, speculation, if we're going to be there again next year or if they're going to find us another place. But then back to what you're saying too about like the growing pains we're going through, I completely agree. I mean, it's like for myself personally with the show, even, it's a brand new thing for myself. It's brand new in a sense for this industry, and trying to figure out how to make this work to benefit everybody. And to get people on a different mindset. Like I just changed the name of my show the other day to the subtitle to where my focus is really now like helping the glass artist become an artistic entrepreneur, and not just thinking about being an artist, but thinking about running your business successfully. But there's so many different facets of it, So it's fun that we're all realizing that we are growing, that laws are changing, and that we all got to take it seriously, because we're going to be left behind if you're not. And then like you're saying with the trade shows, it seems like the pre-trade shows, you really got to market yourself and promote yourself, that you're going to, in fact, be at these trade shows, what booth you're in, where you're going to be at, your location, even if you have like a map of maybe where the venue's going to be, like all that stuff is so important, especially if you're not a part of the baller section at very first, where you got the pre-invite opening night kind of thing. You're not a part of that. So
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, and the trade shows yourself, like, have you found them to be successful for yourself in terms of selling your glass there and then also getting orders on top of that?
Yeah, I have. It's been so I did my first trade show was Glassroots. Let's see, I did it for my third time. So yeah, 3 years ago, I did my first Glassroots, and that was when I was still working full time at my day job. Like I didn't go full time glass until like a year and a half ago. So I actually did my first trade show while I was working full time. I don't know that that's the best thing to do, but it was a way for me to kind of gauge how successful this thing was going to be, and try to be smart about it. And so yeah, from that point on, that first trade show, all I was looking to do was just cover my costs. I didn't really have any expectations, but I just immediately started getting orders, and that's what I did. Was I had my the glass there to sell, but then I also took orders, and I was immediately getting orders, and I had no idea what to do. I was like, "Do you want to make a down payment?" And the guy just looked at me super funny, and I was like, "Okay, apparently you don't do that." And I was just like totally learning it on the fly. But yeah, from that point on, I've done Glassroots and the American Glass Expo for the past 2 years. I've done all three of them. One of them being in the mid show in Denver for the American Glass Expo, and then the January Age show in Vegas. And then this year they're not doing the Denver show; they're doing it in Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I can say about those shows is that they are very expensive. The cost on top of just the booth fee is going to set you back, so you got to take that all into account. But basically, what I was doing was I was using it as a promotion tool, because nobody knew who I was, and a lot of people still don't know who I am, and that's fine. And I think that's the natural order of it. But what it did was allowed me to get my name out to a mass group of people who had never seen my stuff before. And also it allowed me to sell this stuff at a really reasonable price, which again, maybe for better or for worse, after that first Glassroots show, I had to make a ton of stuff at way too low of a price. And it kind of was a real challenge for me. But I didn't really make any money off of it in that sense, but it got my name out to this whole group of people who had never heard of me before. And was just the sort of start of my career at that point. I went down in hours at my day job, down to like 3 days a week, and then like 6 months later, I went down to 1 day a week. Fortunately, I had an awesome boss who I was sort of a part of the beginning of this business that opened, and I was living with him at the time when we opened that business, and also when I started blowing glass, and he let me set up a little bench in his basement, which was, without that, I don't know if I would have ever started it. But yeah, he let me sort of slowly get out of there and transfer. He was really supportive in me becoming an artist, and so he let me slowly transfer over to being a full-time glassblower until I held on to that 1 day a week for maybe a year or so, because I just had a hard time emotionally letting go of the place, I guess. But it just didn't make any sense anymore with the orders I had and stuff coming in to keep it.
Yeah, that's good, man. It's, almost having like a mentor in a sense like that, someone that's really got your back. And it's, no matter, I think all of us need that, whether it's, a family, a friend, someone that's a professional in a different industry. But, just in general, to have someone that's got your back and supporting you, saying, yeah, man, you can do this, especially in that situation, especially when it's like, quote unquote, your boss,
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. So kind of back up to the trade shows. So since you've had the experience with them, you're saying about, asking for deposits. Do you require deposits now from shops, or did you have any issues from their first trade shows of saying, a shop saying, yeah, I want 10 of these, and then you get them made, and then they're like, oh, no, I don't want those fucking things. Like, have you had any issues with that, or, and had to fine tune the way you do things?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have had some shops back out, but the way I look at it is, well, to answer your first question, no, I don't take a deposit because I realize that nobody takes a deposit. And if I tried to, people wouldn't be ordering from me. And maybe some people do, but as far as I can tell, nobody does. It's sort of a trust system right now. And I think that is one of the areas where this industry can get more professional. And I think that's why a lot of people see a benefit in using a distributor, because you as an artist don't necessarily need to deal with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I have had I generally, from every show, I have a couple shops back out. But what I do is I don't take a deposit. I put them on my order list. I let them know upfront how long it's, or at least an estimation how long it's going to be. I mean, right now I'm probably 5 to 6 months before people are going to get their work from the January show. And if they're not okay with that, I can see usually their reaction, whether or not they're okay with that. And I just tell them, hey, like, feel free to hold off on the order right now. Let me know when you do want it and you can check back. But the reality of it is, if you're in the business of buying and selling glass as a retailer, you need it year round. And so it's a good idea to have people tell you that this is going to be 5 months, because you don't want everything coming in after age and then it all sells, and then you got this middle area of no glass maybe. So
yeah,
at least I've never owned a retail store, so maybe I shouldn't speak for them, but that's my interpretation of it. So basically what I do is I put them on the list. I go by, order of when they showed up at the show and got their order in with me. And then I call them about a week before I start the order to give them a heads up so that they can make sure they get money together. And a lot of times they'll tell me at that point, hey, I don't do this now. Or they'll say, absolutely, send it on over, and then I'll get the order done, and then I'll call them again for payment. The day I'm ready to ship it to them. And I'd say out of all the orders I've gotten over the past 3 years from those shows, I've maybe had 4 stores completely back out. But it is pretty rare, and it's nice to see, because this is totally based on a trust system. And one thing I would say to the retailers is, as an artist, is this is my life, and this is all of our lives that go to these shows. And we go there and we spend a lot of money, especially on the Vegas show. We spend a lot of money to be there, and to get an iffy number as far as what your income is going to look like for that year, if you're basing it on those shows, is really scary. And so I'd say to store owners, if they're placing an order, that needs to be written in blood, in my opinion. That needs to be set in stone, or as far as in your mind goes.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, like in terms of the professional side, because again, we're going through growing pains, and there's so many shops out there now that either A, benefited from the spice time where they were made a lot of money from the spice, which then helped them to buy more higher end glass and get out of the China shit. So there's companies and stores that have a shit ton of money, and then there's the mom and pops that are living kind of still bootstrapping their stores, so they can't afford to go around to every artist and give a deposit. But I do agree that there needs to be something set in stone, maybe like a contract that's going to say, this is what you're agreeing to order. This is the estimated time of delivery. I will do a follow-up call to fine-tune everything in the process. Maybe we need to make adjustments, maybe add or subtract. But there definitely needs to be a professional side of it, because myself personally, I would request a deposit or something from everybody, because again, like you're saying, I mean, this is our lifeblood, and if you go to a shop, these things that cost you $5,000 minimum just to go to a trade show, between the cost of getting into all your setups, the cost, your flights, your shipping, your room. I mean, it's, if you don't mind, discussing this, like, what did it you think estimated was costing you, say from your first show to now? You've done what you said the past 2 years you've done shows.
Yeah, well, I guess it's been 3 years
3 years
now.
now. So
But I've done two American Glass Expos in January and two of the Denver ones, and I've done three glass routes. So
yeah, and the glass routes are closer for you, like, which makes
it
is
is, yeah.
huge.
Which that's why I love that collection. It's sort of based on just being in the Midwest and being in Madison, which is such a cool town.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those small towns that got flooded by college students, and it's got this really cool artsy good food, but also it's like the Monona Terrace where we have the show is right on this lake, and it's just huge and beautiful, and there's a bike path that goes all the way around it and stuff. And yeah, so I love that show. So yeah, that's a cheap show for me in the sense that I think the booth fee is actually maybe more than the American Glass Expo, but since I can drive there and carry all my materials with me, and then I usually share a room with my friend Dan up in Duluth. The costs are much lower. Whereas Vegas, my wife comes with me to all these shows. So I buy her plane ticket, obviously. And so we do that and we rent a car, partially because we drive to Palm Springs to visit with her folks while we're out there to make a little vacation on top of it. But yeah, it is a very expensive show if you got to ship stuff. Vegas is really expensive in the sense that it's really cheap to stay there and for the most part eat there and gamble, but everything else is really expensive. Like shipping your supplies, like the Hard Rock was charging just insane fees to even touch a box. And you could tell they were pretty frustrated by all that. So yeah, I would say the investment on like the Vegas show was, around $5,000. If you want to look at all the costs,
Yeah.
maybe a little less than that.
Yeah, that's kind of the high number I was estimating. Like I did a show on it and just did like flights from Tampa because I'm kind of like one of the furthest places from Vegas in a sense.
Yeah.
So like flights and hotel fees and shipping. I mean, because I know like my brother went and he's done Champs and Age last year, I guess it was, and it cost him almost $300 just to ship his glass out there.
Oh yeah, and that's just regular boxes. I probably spent $400 just on regular boxes, whereas a lot of these people are sending crates. If they have any display stuff, they'll ship a full crate, and I can't imagine what that costs. Plus the handling fees, because that's the thing about the Hard Rock is that they're a corporate company, and so they have all these regulations and rules that they have to abide by, and that goes along with the illicit activities that are happening as well. It's not necessarily that they're trying to harsh on the show's vibe and the group that's there. They're just trying to follow the strict laws in Vegas, but the strict laws of their corporate entity.
Right.
And unfortunately, our industry, and not necessarily the glass blowers or even the store owners, but maybe just attendees or a lot of people don't necessarily respect that, and it's unfortunate to see, but there's only so much you can do with a large group of people of somewhat like mine, but everybody's got a different idea of what they're there for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my concern with the big show we had here, Big Galleria down in Miami this last year, just because, Florida still isn't a legal medical state. And the fact that we have a trade show that are promoting the pipe industry, and then if you got some jackass outside doing dabs out in front of the community, the rec center or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden technically everything inside could be deemed illegal. It's like you got,
Sure.
400 artists with thousands and thousands of pipes that are now, all right, we got this huge, everybody's getting life sentences bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the worst as it is, but that's the kind of things that concern me, and I get, I get it, but at the same time, it's kind of crazy, because I'm sure like with like the porn industry that had the rewards there, I'm sure they weren't having orgies in the fucking rec centers and they're as they're doing their shows. But
Right.
you got people walking around, with their G pens and stuff, having a good time. So it's interesting stuff. So on the numbers side, I mean, if you don't mind discussing, I don't even necessarily need a number, but like, did you find that your percentages of sales that you got out of the show were beneficial for what your initial expense, like your return on investment in a sense? Like, was there a good return for you to make it worth it?
Yeah, I think everybody's got different expectations of what they need from a show or need from their income as far as their art goes. And I'd say that I'm fortunate in the sense that, I'm married and my wife's got a great job and we have a dual income. And what I'm trying to say is not everything rides on the sales of my pipes. It's a big part of it. It's half of our income, but I can go to these shows and not expect to make, for my cost to only be maybe 5% or whatever. I'm sure there's some marketing guru or that could tell you what percentage your cost should be on a show like that compared to what you see out of it. But no, for me, those shows by far pay all the costs. But then also, like I said, I'm from that show. I probably have 5 months worth of orders from that show. So this year I'm only doing 2 shows, along with a couple other smaller events, but only 2 trade shows to make for my entire year of orders. So in that sense, yeah, it's absolutely beneficial. And that's been the case from the first show I've done. I've never had a show where it's oh man, I barely made any money on that. I guess I should say the Denver Age shows were not great.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
They were still worth it. I mean, Denver is a great place to be. All the costs were paid for based on my sales, and I had some orders. So to me, then that's a good show, because that's the thing as a glassblower. You're gonna be doing a lot of these shows. Not every one is gonna be, huge for you, but
yeah, I think and that's the thought that I've had now, because again, I'm in the same boat as you, bro. Like my wife makes a great income. She's been supportive of me over the past year and a half as I've gotten this podcast up and all my things going. Which is it's huge, but the dream of being able to do a trade show where every 6 months you go do a trade show and then you get 6 months worth of orders. It would be really sweet. And then the other side, like you're saying, or it's either you do that or you have a distributor that goes and reps the glass for you and you just keep them full. But, with distributors, you're not actually, your face isn't necessarily out there. You have a company representing you. To where the trade shows, you're actually getting out there front and center and promoting yourself as an artist, but also this is what I made kind of thing, which I think is a little better if you want to do that, I think it's definitely beneficial. But then, like, talking to other artists who have done it, who appreciate getting those 6 months worth of orders, about 3 months in, when it's time for them to start making a certain order, they're like, oh man, I'm not fucking in the mood to do this, or I don't want to do this anymore, or whatever. You kind of you miss out on that whole spark that you had from the minute you got the order. It's kind of weird, as this kind of yin and yang we got to deal with being an artist and a businessman at the same time. Knowing we have to produce this shit, that this isn't just okay. Right now, this is my heart and soul going into this piece. This is okay. I'm doing some production, even if it's higher end production, to fill this order.
Yeah,
it's a weird back and forth kind of soul and brain kind of conflict that we have on a constant basis.
Yeah, and what I'll say about that too is, especially as a new glassblower that's doing these shows, you got to be careful because, doing this for a year and a half full time, my progression has seen night and day from when I started, or even from when I went full time. And so you take orders on like 6 months worth of orders on these pieces that you thought were going to be something you're doing for a long time. And also the money that you're charging for them, you think is going to sort of stay the same. And then all of a sudden your skills in that next 6 months drastically change. And they're getting better. You're using maybe more glass, better colors, different techniques in them. And that's part of the thing that I like to do is it's really easy to get, even if what I'd say is I've never really done production. It's more high-end production, I guess. Everything can become production if you do it over and over. But the thing is, I always want to try new techniques and try different things. And so sometimes I'll incorporate those little things into the pieces that people ordered. And usually it's a positive thing. But a lot of times I'm maybe not charging for that new skill that I learned or color that I incorporated or, whatever. So it does get a little tricky if you're taking, big orders and a lot of time of orders, because then you get stuck in sort of this rut of not necessarily learning new things as easily or as quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, man. Because I know myself with customs, when I've done customs in the past, where it was something I had never done before, and a lot of times I like doing custom orders for people because again, it's something I've never done, and I'm learning a new skill. But when you price it out, in the end, it ends up being like recently I had an order where I did this water pipe for this girl, and it ended up being a nightmare. It actually made me stop doing customs for about 3 months just because of it. But I quoted her a price on it, and she was young and didn't understand what it takes to make this stuff. I mean, it got to a point where I was like arguing with like, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. So you have to understand that you have to trust me what I'm saying, you know? I mean, just to throw some numbers out there, I gave her a piece, $500. I charged her for it. I could have easily wholesaled it for $1,000 when it was all said and done, you know? And after the fact that it was all said and done, I look at it and I'm like, you know, it made me aware that even though I've been doing this for 17 years, I'm still myself going through these struggles or, you know, falling over myself and learning, you know, in the process of getting excited about what I'm doing for a living, that I love the glass. You know, it's almost like I would do this every day for free, you know, in a sense, you know, so but you got to get paid for what your value of your glass is, you know, but then like you're saying, you get orders and you can't really do that. Do you think that maybe at a point where, say, you're learning a new technique that you're incorporating into an order that you've already been given, that you would like preemptively let the shop know, like, hey, this is what this price is now, but then like next time you order it, it's going to be a little bit more because, you know, the time or whatever that goes into it?
Yeah, I guess there's maybe been some times that I've had those discussions. And I think being open and honest with store owners is the best thing you can do. Just because if your prices do change and they come back to a show or they come back for a second order or something and they say, wait, these prices are different, then hopefully you can explain like, yeah, but these are the different techniques now that are in it, or they're this much bigger, or use this much more glass, or whatever. They have Illuminati or something in them, which costs an arm and a leg. Or so yeah, I think just being honest with people, but I think really you gotta be careful with that. It's a fine line, and I think that's why a lot of people won't maybe release a product until they A, perfected it, or B, are ready to take orders on it. And sometimes maybe I'm not the best at that because I get excited when I learn something new or created this new idea and I just put it out there in the world. But yeah, I think you still got to stick with your prices, though. If a store is expecting something from a show, you got to give them what they expect, and that's just good business. You can give them more than they expect, and if that includes that new technique or whatever, and they get that piece, and they're like, oh man, he's like doing this in it. I wasn't expecting that, and he didn't charge me more for it. Then I would much rather do that and have them sell it faster and come back to me, you know, for another order, and then tell them like, hey, obviously you saw that was nicer or whatever, or different. So they are this price now, and generally they're more than happy to pay that extra little bit for something new and better, you know?
Yeah, it's that whole under promise and over deliver concept.
Exactly.
You know, it's definitely important. You know, I always like throwing something extra in my orders for shops or for, you know, a custom order or something like that. They just, you know, they weren't expecting it, and it's always fun getting feedback. You know, the ones that don't give me feedback, I get a little irritated with. You know? It's like, come on, man, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely important, and customer service, and especially dealing with the retail shops, it's important. You know, a lot of people don't like the custom stuff because having to deal with the customer straight on it can be a pain in the ass. Like for example, we had over at Disney, one of our soft glass guys, he's been doing soft glass for 20 years in the furnace. And one of our guests asked for a specific piece, and the price tag was wrong on it. And he's like, well, I'll give you, you know, the price on that, whatever it's listed at. It was like $30 less than what it was supposed to be. And they asked him to make it another one for him with specific dimensions, and he made the specific dimensions. And then when they saw it, they're like, oh, can you do a little bit bigger? You know, and he's like, what the fuck? I gave you guys a discount, and you're wanting to like spit my face now, you know? Yeah. And he's like, well, I made it again because I knew the first one's going to sell anyways. And a lot of times it happens that way, but still, it's like, it's such a kick in the balls sometimes, you know? But at the same time, for the shop owners too, it's the same way. They order something and they didn't get what they expected. It's a kick in the balls for them, and it just puts a bad taste in their mouth, and then they will probably never order again. And it's good that yourself, like, you're telling these shops that, hey, this is going to take 5 months. That's a long fucking time to get to be sitting after ordering something, and the fact that you follow up and you say, hey, I'm getting started on your order just to make sure we're on the same page, because they're so busy doing their thing, they don't always keep track of all their people they talk to and shit, you know? It's so...
Yeah, you know, it amazes me every show that I print out order forms that are specific for that show. Every time somebody's ordering, I offer to give them a copy. You know, my wife will sit there and write a copy of the order form, and I'll write one. It's one for my records and one for theirs. And 95% of these store owners, they won't take pictures. They won't take an order form. And it's, you'll call them and you'll tell them, hey, this is Adam with Crux Glass. I'm gonna start your order. They're like, wait, who are you? What did I order again? Can you send me some pictures?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I understand why you don't remember that. You didn't take anything in the chaos of the show, you know?
Yeah, maybe like do something where you have like photos of all your work, and on a sheet of paper you can have like a little check box next to it, like, okay, you want this, and the pricing and shit on there.
Yeah,
You know.
it's just tough. I end up, for me, getting ready for a show is crazy. I try to leave a month, but it generally comes down to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm working crazy to get ready for a show, to have 30 or 40 pieces on my table. And that includes staying up till crazy hours of the night, the night we fly, or the night before we fly out, printing out my order forms, and then taking the last few things that are still warm out of the kiln and putting them in my carry-on. So it's kind of hard to prepare your order forms properly and take pictures and all that stuff. And that's why it ends up being slightly chaotic. But
Yeah, it makes sense.
It all works out as long as you try to stay organized at the show.
Well, you sound a lot more organized than a lot of people I could talk to, which again was why I wanted to bring you on, as we had previously discussed. Having done this for 5 years now, you are somewhat successful as a 5-year glass artist and doing what you're doing, but you seem also to have business background and some good head on your shoulders. So it's important, and I'm glad you're sharing the story with us.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah, not a problem, man. So to kind of move forward from the trade shows, and you're married. Do you have any kids at all yet, or you just got just the wife?
Just the wife, and I don't know that I'm allowed to say this necessarily, but we did just find out that we got one on the way.
Ooh, hell yeah, man! Fucking
Yeah.
A, world exclusive premiere right there. How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we actually have our second doctor's appointment tomorrow morning. Yeah, everything's great. Everything seems to be happy and healthy, and we're super excited. We've been married for 2.5 years, and yeah, we're super excited. But it does mean that I'm gonna lose my partner for a lot of the trade shows, I think.
Yeah. You'll find another, I guess, buddy to go along with you, help out.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm sure at that point too, you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna probably want to bring like an assistant on of some sort to do all your errand running and stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about leaving too much.
Yeah, man, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's huge. Yeah. Once I brought my assistant on, it made a big difference. It's nice to be like, hey, Mike, can you go run to the post office? Yeah, man, no problem. What do you need? Yeah, it's like it's a big
That's
deal.
awesome.
It makes a big difference. Yeah, and I'm gonna do a whole show on that, talking about bringing on an assistant and the process to go through it, to where it makes it beneficial for yourself and for them. Because like when I put my thing out for an assistant, I threw it up on Instagram like, hey, I'm looking for somebody. I was overwhelmed by emails. Like, I couldn't believe people were wanting to drive 5 hours just to come be my assistant. It was humbling and pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I was very specific with what I was looking for, and I sent the email out to those interested, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. You're not getting paid for the first 90 days, all that kind of shit, Mm-hmm. And I fine-tuned it down to like 3 people, which then I chose Mike out of the whole group. It's kind of fun, so I'm going to definitely talk about that. But yeah, man, so how old are you?
Yeah, that's got to be challenging.
Sorry.
I'm 29. I'll be 30 in September.
Okay, cool. So we were saying about the challenge.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that would be really challenging, because being a craftsman and owning your own business is so personal, and I just can't even imagine going through that process of giving up some of that responsibility to somebody, of even shipping, or the small things like returning emails. It's so personal, and it's sort of like, this is my baby, and this is, especially when you're going to ship out glass or do those different things, it'd be tough to put it in somebody's hands, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. There's a show I listen to called The Art of Charm, and I recommend it to anybody. It's dedicated really towards men, but it's got a lot of beneficial information for everybody. But they had a guest on, and they were talking about that exact thing, about like how our businesses are like our heart and soul, and what we put into it. And your first employee is always the most difficult. Eventually, you may have 500 employees, but that very first employee, it's so hard to do. And they were saying, like, and I don't remember the exact percentages, but there's a formula they have where they show where if you teach somebody specifically a certain way that you do things, and you spend so much time with them, the long-term payoff is huge in the amount of time that you save. Just to sit down with somebody over a week period of time and say, this is how I pack my stuff, specifically how I wrap all my orders up, make sure I'm signing it first. You have a specific regimen of how you do it, and you teach them that. And if they deviate from that at all, you got to like reel them back in and say, hey, you got to do it exactly like this. And then once they get it down, you can then walk away, and then that, you can trust that is going to get done that certain way. Right. But you have to invest initially up front the hours and time that goes into it. But in the long run, you spend 30 hours teaching somebody how to specifically do that, you're going to save yourself thousands of hours down the road. It sucks packing orders, man. Like, I'd love it, but that's probably the one thing where I fault at in my business the most is packing orders and getting them sent out on time.
Oh, man. All mine definitely go out on time, but it's one of I sort of have anxiety of making people wait in all aspects of my life. But,
yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, but it is my least favorite. Actually, I'll say signing my work with a tie pen is my least favorite activity in this industry. I don't know why. It's just like this thing that when I sit down and I look at a batch of glass and I'm like, I got to sign all this stuff. If I were better, I should just sign every one as it comes out of the kiln or whatever. But
right.
Oh, it is like my least favorite thing. I don't know why.
That's funny. My buddy Chad, my shop mate, he went over to Harbor Freight and got like leather tools with like letters and numbers and shit. It's like a whole kit you can get. And he's taken like, for this year, he's got his CP for his Chad piece thing that he does. And then he's got 16 on there, and he's just like put the two CPs together and then the 16, and he stamps everything that he makes, whether it's a hand pipe or whatever. And everything has this impression in the bottom of it while it's still hot. Yeah. And yeah, dude, everything he makes has it in there. And I was like, damn, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. Like signing, like my wrists are sore sometimes, and signing with the tie pens, the angle you got to get at and everything. Sometimes like it hurts my wrist to do it. Yep. Not to mention like the sensation of scratching the glass and the sound it makes. It's like nails on a chalkboard sometimes to me, Yeah, sure. But at the same time, it's cool, man. When people are like, hey, you want to sign this for me? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll sign that for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's important to have. It's an archive, having a date and we don't know where this industry is going to go, and you don't know where you're going to go as an artist yourself. So those it's important to have those pieces claimed, and having your name on them.
Yeah, I agree. Hell yeah. So with the being married, have you found like a routine or a schedule or like the work-life balance kind of routine that you go through with yourself, or is it kind of up in the air?
Yeah, we just work. Yeah. That's it. No, I pretty much work 6 days a week. I try to make sure that I take off Mondays with my wife, because where she works is closed on Mondays, and she works for herself too. So we both get to make our own schedules, which is huge. Yeah. Huge deal. That's why she can come to the shows, and we get to go on a lot of trips. We're actually leaving for Thailand on Wednesday.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, so we get to travel a lot together, and obviously things are going to change with the baby, but we definitely still plan on being adventurous parents and taking our kid out and doing those things. But yeah, it's tough. We're definitely good having our alone time. So I work early. I like to work really early in the morning. And she doesn't go to work until usually around noon. So I get that morning time in the shop by myself. She gets that morning to do her thing. She likes to take the dog out and go on long walks with him and stuff. And then I have a little bit of time to sort of settle down after I get done working around 6. And she doesn't get home till about 8. So I'll maybe get some things prepared for dinner, or and then we just always try to take Mondays off together, which we love. We love having a weekday off together because we don't like to be around crowds of people. So if we need to go run errands or anything, we kind of got the places to ourselves, which is nice.
Yeah, man, I'd like Wednesdays like my new day off.
Oh yeah,
I love it, dude. Yeah, like the weekdays off, like because I'm always laughing at myself. I'm like, all these motherfuckers are working, and I am off today. Yeah. Even if you work for yourself, you got to take a day off. You just got to set one day to get shit done.
Yeah, and I'll say as a glassblower, you're never really taking a full day off, because I'll still answer a bunch of messages or pack glass up and get it to the post office on Mondays or whatever it is,
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's good shit. So where's your studio at? You work out of your house, or do you have a location?
I do work out of my house. We bought a house just before we got married, a month before we got married, actually, and I turned the garage into it's all my shop. It's not a garage at all, really. It's like a 1.5 car garage, and the whole thing is my shop. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. I tried talking my wife into letting me do that again, because I was in here myself in the garage, and then got my studio space. which I like going to work, like having a place away from home because I'm not distracted by chores or the yard or wanting to play out in the garden and shit. But yeah, I definitely miss walking out my back door here and being in the garage.
Yeah, I can definitely see the benefit of going somewhere. My friend's glass studio is just like a block and a half north of me, Chris Ahalt, and we've been working together a little bit lately on some collabs, and it's just this really awesome space that's obviously not at his house. It's in sort of an artist building, and so it's been really nice going over there once in a while, and I can definitely see the benefits of getting away from home. But being a new glass blower and a new business person, not thinking about that extra cost is also really helpful.
Yeah, I think about it every time I write my check.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. Like, we just downsized from 1,200 square foot to 600 square feet, which has been great for my mind space and also my checkbook, too. But
Yeah.
I think about that extra money I'm spending on rent. I'm like, damn, I could just buy more glass or a kiln or, keep upgrading my shit.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm not in there as much as I was. I'm now, doing the Disney thing full time till May. So I'm in the studio like maybe 2 days a week right now doing my work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it definitely, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. So yeah, dude. So what kind of activities do you do outside of glass blowing?
Oh man, we try to do a lot. My big thing the past couple of years, since I do work so much, we used to be a pretty big rock climbers. Used to travel around and climb and go to the gym a lot. And that's kind of taken a back seat because we've been working so much. And so I've really gotten into running. It's one of my big activities. I like to do my first marathon last year, and I like to do races. So I do half marathons and 25Ks and stuff. And
Jesus, dude.
yeah, so that's one of my big thing that takes a lot of my life up as far as time goes. Mountain biking is really big for me too. That was the store I helped open, was a really great enthusiast bike shop. So that really got me into mountain biking, and we have really great trails around Minneapolis. But yeah, other than that, playing with our dog a lot, going on hikes and canoeing, and Minnesota's great for a lot of outdoor activities. We don't have mountains or anything, but tons of nature.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I want to come visit one of these days. I need to get up to the shows, come do glass roots.
Yeah, man, glass roots is awesome. Yeah, and then you can make your way back over to Minneapolis and check it out.
Yeah. You ever get yourself involved in any of the Michigan projects at all, or any of those kind of things?
Yeah, actually, I'm going this year. I just signed up to do a little demo spot at the Michigan Glass Project. I've been wanting to go because I'm from there, and I was actually born in Detroit. My dad still lives near Detroit, and so does my brother. So it's got a little place in my heart. So I've been wanting to get there. But this year I'm not doing a middle trade show, and I'm doing that. And then we have another demo day for me in the works at a shop in Illinois near Chicago. I believe it's called All About It. I'm going to do a demo day there, possibly in conjunction with that same time of the Michigan project. So I got those two things in the works right now, but I haven't done like the DFO or anything like that yet. It's just a lot of travel.
Yeah.
I like to stay close to home for the most part and keep working, but
yeah, I heard a guy one day that was a big business guy. He says he's always traveling. He's so busy. He's like, my favorite time to travel and places to visit is the inside of my house.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, it makes so much sense because we're never home.
Yeah.
It's killer. So when you're doing these demos, like do you have like a routine, or I know this is new for you yourself, but have you figured out like how you charge your time or any of that kind of stuff? How you set it up with the shops?
As far as just doing like a demo, like the glass project, the Michigan glass project?
No, like the shop you're gonna be going to, for instance, because a lot of shops,
sure.
the trends are for shops to if they don't have a studio inside, at least to have a tent out front, and have demos and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess they have a pretty big working space with a bunch of torch stations and stuff. So, I don't think I'll have to worry about any of that there. And we haven't talked too much about the details, but other than that, they just said, I think they're gonna hook me up with a hotel room, and I'll probably bring some work to try to sell. I don't know if that's cool with them or if they'll buy some. I know they want to put an order in too, so maybe they'll just buy some work from me. And I know a lot of people will kind of make these deals where they just, whatever they make there, they purchase. Mm-hmm. and that usually works out pretty good. I don't necessarily expect anything like that other than just getting some exposure. That'll be my first real time blowing glass in front of people. Like I said, I haven't, hardly even taken a lesson other than, learning how to make a pendant,
Right.
5 years ago. I did take a Venetian class with Chris Ahalt that I was talking about. He was trained by Cesare Toffolo, and I got to take a 2-day course with him. But we basically just worked on learning how to use jacks and making cups and feet and stuff. And so I haven't really taken any pipe technique classes at all.
Do you find that those classes helped you with your pipes?
It did in the sense it might have been a little early for me to take that class. And also, if you want to do that kind of vessel work, you got to practice it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something I came back and practiced right away or ever necessarily. But there was some certain things about the way a Venetian trained person works that you can really put into pipe work, especially if you're doing larger vessel work with your pipe work. Things just like watching your heat base and rotating slowly, and just using different types of flames, which can be challenging because as pipe artists, we use a lot of crazy colors and you got to use a lot more oxygen maybe than a Venetian vessel worker would need to use. So that can become a challenge. But yeah, I think really just what I took away from that class was really paying attention to your heat base, and heating things very evenly before you start to make any type of moves, as far as blowing or stretching or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the actual class, it was an awesome experience. It was one of the first times I actually got to watch somebody blow glass for a while.
Hell yeah.
So that was cool. But
yeah, I think it's important to, and I preach it all the time, to take a furnace work class or some kind of class of that sort that's different than pipe making. Because again, you're saying, you're going to see somebody else doing something completely different that maybe you've never seen before. You may learn some new hand tricks. Like myself, having done this for so long, when I've taken classes recently, which was some of the first classes I ever took myself, I was really big into like looking at how their torch was set up, how their tools were set up on their bench, like how their hands moved, certain kind of what they're, and I like the term making a move. I had never really heard that before until I took Joe Peters, Peter Muller class. They did a class together recently last year. And, they had talked about that, like, what's the next move going to be? And you got to like kind of plan it out like a chess match in a sense. And, it's so important to kind of have that predetermination of what you're going to be doing so you're prepared for it. And then you're also prepared for it if something fucks up in the process, and how to fix that to get then to your next move.
yeah,
There's a lot you can take away from it, especially like if you take a furnace class and you get into working with the furnace and getting a gather and, the different types of glass that they use. It's so different than Boro. It's amazing how much different that glass is. And for me, I was actually kind of, as crazy as it sounds, it was kind of boring for me doing furnace work only because of having to sit at the bench and waiting for my glass to cool off enough to where I can go back in and get a gather.
oh yeah,
That downtime, I was like, God, this is fucking boring. I'm so used to just getting hot, and why can't I do this, and why can't I do that? And they're like, because this does not work like your shit does, Get over
Yeah.
yourself.
yeah.
It's kind of
With
funny.
the torch, I think there's a tendency to, like you were saying, not necessarily plan out your moves. So there's a tendency to stay in the flame, and when you don't really know what the reason you're in the flame is, and that's kind of one of those things that class taught me. It was just like, wait till have the torch in the flame for a very specific amount of time. That heat's really important, and then when you come out, that heat's really important. Maybe letting it cool enough so that it creates that sort of skin layer on it before you do your puff or your stretch, which will sort of even your heat base out a little bit and let things get saturated. And until you see somebody do those things, you don't really have a concept of that at all. You heat it up and then you blow into it, and then you hope it turns out to be a round shape, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why I think pulling points, as much as people hate doing it, and I keep saying this, but I'm gonna do a show on the reasons behind pulling points, because like I've pulled hundreds of thousands of these fucking things over the years, and it still to this day, I find it still is so important to learn. You learn your heat base, you learn how to work your torch, you learn how to make your glass hot, how to make it evenly heated, how to pull it out and wait a second. You don't want to just stretch it right away, let the glass settle.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many little small details involved in that instead of just popping a hole and throwing a blowpipe on there. It's like almost anybody can do that, but I've got guys that I've worked with that have never pulled a point before. It's crazy.
Yeah, I fall into that category to a certain extent. I did a lot of point pulling, in that class and a little bit after. But yeah, as far as for most of my work, it's just attaching that blow tube. I mean,
Hmm.
partially because it's fast and easy, and also partially because I'm working with a lot of big glass a lot of times. I pull my own line work and stuff, so I'm often using really big glass and 75 mil tubing and 50 mil tubing and things like that. So obviously, you're not going to be using points for that kind of
Yeah.
thing, but definitely little technique stuff. I could absolutely be using points instead of blow tubes. Whether it's wig wags or prepping color balls or whatever it is.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a generational thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm getting that weird feedback again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's weird.
I wonder if it's a timing thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's coming up in the recording myself. Like, if I don't, I'm trying to ignore it, but I'm like, I wonder if it's coming up in the recording, and if that is the case, then that's going to be annoying. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything, but
Okay, it could just be on my end. No, but
sure.
I think it actually just went away.
Oh, good.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, man, I think it's also a generational thing too, because like my generation, I shouldn't say have to, but we did in a sense had to do production to make a living, to also compete with the China market and everything else going on. So it's I think it's also, again, it's a generational thingy,
Yeah.
just in mindset and stuff. But I still think it's an important thing to learn, only because, again, it's just that the little nuances that you get out of it are what are going to give you that foundation for down the road. That one thing leads to another kind of concept.
Yeah, and I think with any craft, there's and this is kind of one of the things I wanted to mention and talk about is being a new glass blowers. I see a lot of new glass blowers, and I've been in sort of this weird spot of 5 years ago. Like a lot has changed even in this 5 years
Mm-hmm.
from when I started. Whether it's like the size of pieces or the different techniques or the different function of things, like you really got to adapt quickly. But what I see a lot of times is there's a little bit of a disconnect with the new generation as far as learning things the way that they were meant to be learned, and sort of having respect for the process. And like you're saying, like pulling points, if you have the opportunity to learn how to pull points, or you have the knowing that points are there and they have a reason, you should try to learn how to pull them. Or any technique that you knew that existed for a really long time in lamp working, it should be a part of your DNA to maybe want to learn that as somebody who's wanting to learn this skill and this craft. And you see these people that are, social media is crazy for this stuff, and I try to not pay attention too much to it, but you see all these new glass blowers that are starting to do these complex seals and things right away, before they even really understand the material in its very root form. And I would say after 5 years of doing it, I still don't. I'm just now becoming comfortable with the actual material and having an idea in my head and being able to somewhat make that happen out of the material that I'm working with. And I see that even on a very physical level every day for the past 5 years, not recently, but before that, working with glass sort of feels like a struggle. It sort of feels like it's going to kind of do what it wants to do, and you're not necessarily controlling it 100% because it's this struggle that's happening all the time, and it feels like a wrestling match. Once you sort of cross that line, and this is what I've seen lately, and then my work has really progressed in the past even 6 months, is that when I go out there every day and I work, I feel comfortable with the material, and I feel like, okay, I understand some things about it and I'm not going to claim that I understand everything about it, not even close, but there's just working with it and feeling it is comfortable now. And now I can actually start utilizing some of the techniques that I've been wanting to learn, or maybe I've practiced in the past. I sort of see people sort of skipping that entire step of becoming comfortable with the material, and they're immediately going into these complex seals, and worrying so much about the function of the pipe industry and these different things, and also trying to do these techniques that they see out there that a lot of people have spent decades learning how to do, jumping right into that. And it's kind of scary to see. It is the age of information. A lot of people say we have it a lot more easy right now because of all the information out there, and there's a ton of information. but I also see it as a huge downfall for a lot of people.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and just not going through the steps and maybe not having the respect for the material or the artists that came before them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man, because I know like part of our industry is art and part of our industry is business. And for those that are new that say we're introduced from degenerate art or something of that nature, I get fired up every time I see that documentary. You know, Slinger did such a good job on showing the history of our industry and then showing where it is now. And it's a lot of fucking fun, you know. I mean, seriously, I watched towards the end of that video and that show. I'm like, I get fired up. If it's 3 a.m, I want to go blow some glass, you know.
Yeah.
And I get it, you know. But at the same time, it's like when you look at the business side of things. There's a couple of podcasts I listen to, and this one guy, John Lee Dumas, he's like one of the the main guys in the podcast industry right now. And I say that because he does coaching and whatever else. But this dude's making like 7 figures a month through revenue from his podcast, and he puts it up on his website every month. They have a monthly income report, and he shows like his expenses and whatever. But he's been doing this for 3.5, almost 4 years now, and it's taken him 7. He does it's a 7-day-a-week show, so he's like, you know, it's 7 days a week. That's a lot of fucking time putting into it. Wow, he's also done it for 3.5 years, you know. So this guy's, in a sense, he's gotten lucky. That I hate using that term, but he's gotten lucky in the space. But he's also worked his ass off and had to like start from the very beginning of not knowing what the fuck he was doing to where now he's teaching people how to make this kind of money. But the podcasters out there that see his numbers, they think they can make that shit overnight. So they repeat and they copy his show and they make a show that's formatted just like his show, and it doesn't fucking work. The glass in our industry is the same way. You see these guys out there that are making thousands of dollars for their pipes that have been doing it for 10 plus years. And then you got these new guys come in that want to duplicate that exact same piece, thinking they can sell their thing for thousands of dollars, and they've been behind the torch for a fucking week.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. And I understand it, but if you can just get on the torch and not think about how much I'm getting paid for this, how much money I'm going to make. It's an interesting dichotomy in our industry because, again, it is so fun to what we do and exciting, and there's a shit ton of money. And we're only at the tip of the iceberg right now. I mean, fuck, man. Underneath the water is $1 trillion industry that once federal legalization happens, who knows what's going to happen. I think that if you're going to start making a glass, you've got to start off the right way, which is to get a good foundation, to get good habits, to be safe, and not be a fucking cocky jackass.
Yeah, you know, I keep going back to, well, I think it was Slinger that actually said this on Facebook was, would you rather be overrated or underpaid? Yeah. And that really stuck with me because I was like, you know, you're right. So since I started blowing glass, I kind of came in this industry of like, it was at the time 5 years ago, it was all the glasspipes.org, which I just found out is possibly closing down.
Oh, dude, my brother that day, he's like, hey, man, go on there and get all your pictures off. I was one of the first 10 people on that thing, and I haven't used it.
Really?
And I haven't used it probably in 10 years. Yeah, it was kind of cool, man, not to like brag about myself, but like when I first got on there, they had like a ranking system of like the top 20 artists. And it was like Jason Lee, Marcel Braun, Scott Deppie, Bear Claw, Slinger. And then I was in there. I was like in the top 5 for like
nice.
like first 3 years or so. Yeah, it was awesome. And then I stopped posting on there and it went to shit. And then I went back on there the other day looking at that stuff I had made back then. I was like, oh my God, I forgot I was doing that shit. Like,
right.
I was ahead of my time.
Yeah,
not really, but
awesome.
But it's cool, seeing that. But yeah, anybody out there that is on glasspops.org, screen capture your pictures and save them, keep them.
Yeah, it's actually, I just did that because, so I went on there, again, I hadn't been on there for a long time because everything's kind of moving away from there because of all the new social media outlets. But that is where I saw glass for the first time. Like when I started blowing glass, I knew of Adam G and his amazing work at the time. And I knew of Yushin because Adam told me about Yushin, I think. And he sent me the link to glasspipes.org and I went on there and started looking. And I was like, holy cow, it just opened this world to me. And like, that's why I wanted to start blowing glass, because of what Adam showed me and like the pendants that he'd wear back in college. And then seeing glass pipes and glassartist.org. And so when I started blowing glass 5 years ago, I sort of had this feeling of needing to catch up, of like, I wasn't young, I was, well, whatever, 24, 25. So, I mean, I was young, but I wasn't super young to start a new thing. But I was like, had this sort of urgent feeling of, okay, I need to catch up. And I think that back to what we were talking about as far as the new generation in the industry, there's that feeling across the board, right? Because they're seeing all this stuff, this amazing work that's being made for and selling for a lot of money. And so they have this feeling of, I need to catch up. I need to be one of these people. And there's two routes that you can take to that. And that's the basically the underpaid or overrated scenario of, would you rather catch up in hype and of like making these crazy seals like climbs and stuff like that and maybe not making them clean? Or would you rather catch up by working super hard and just becoming that person in a very organic way? And that's really what I strive to do, was do that, but also try to do that by not stepping on any toes on the way. Because there's another thing that's really easy to do, and that's like to really annoy people when you, and I think I rode that fine line for a little while, by maybe asking Adam questions via text, or, different people that I had met in the industry, like, man, I have the sense of urgency. Like, I need to catch up in this stuff, and I think I'm on the edge of learning this technique. And then you'll text a question over to somebody or send them a message on Facebook or something. And after you do it, you're like, oh, why did I do that? I probably annoyed that person, And so there's all these different things that you can do when starting this new craft. And it's really tough to sort of navigate that and know the right thing to do. And all I can say is just work hard and just be your own person and figure it out for yourself and have a good support system. Mm-hmm. My wife was awesome when I started this. She was just like super gung-ho for it and super supportive. And so back to the glass pipes thing too. I just noticed I went on there yesterday because I heard about that and found out that my picture is like the #1 featured gallery right now.
Nice. Fuck yeah, dude. How about that?
It's like the first one on there. It's a collab between Chris Ahalt and I, that guy I was talking about I've been working with.
That's funny. I'm actually on there right now looking at stuff.
Yeah, so the first picture on the featured, I think it was Ben Burton featured us on there. It's like this chameleon bubbler that we made like a year ago. So
I see it on there.
I don't know where all that story was going to, but
yeah. I guess all in all is if you get started, start off with a good, strong foundation and don't be a cocky fuck.
Yeah.
To put it in generalized terms.
Or do it too, maybe that'll get you somewhere.
Yeah, maybe, or get your ass kicked, one of the two.
It is tough though, you see some of these guys, it can get frustrating where it's like they start off with some natural skill, which I think is important. There's a certain degree of, you got to catch on to certain things quickly. If you see, like I haven't seen many people blow glass and I haven't taken many lessons or anything, but if I see something done, it's stuck in my head, and I can sort of take that knowledge that even from just seeing it, maybe without even it being instructed to me, but just seeing something done. And I can take that home and I can usually get some information from that. So I think there's a little bit of natural talent that needs to happen in the beginning there.
Yeah.
But then also you see some of these guys that happen to roll with the right crowd in the beginning, and like they have that going on, but then they also have like these 4 dudes that have been doing it for a long time, and they wind up in their shop and they get to learn from some of the best guys. And those are the guys you're envious of, where it's like, oh man, that's like the perfect storm of awesomeness there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, speaking like with your work, like, I've been following your work for a long time. I had no idea you've only been doing glass for 5 years. Like you couldn't tell, and I've always admired your stuff. So when you contacted me about coming on the show, I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. 'Cause I've been a big fan for a while.
Oh man, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that being said, I find that with the glass medium itself gives somebody the ability to express herself, and that there's artists in our industry and in glass in general that can't draw a stick figure to save their life, but for whatever reason they can represent whatever their thoughts and their soul is into glass and make something incredible out of it. No matter how much foundation of art they have or glass skill, they're still able to come up with something out of this medium. And it's unlike any medium out there. I mean, even getting into clay and stuff, like I've done clay sculptures and what have you most of my life before I got into glass even. And I always enjoyed the sculpture. And once I got into the glass, but I guess for myself, like my timeline is I've taken art classes and have a art background and always wanted to be a professional artist. So for me, it was just natural. I never expected to be a glass artist ever. Like I've always wanted to work for Disney my entire life. I never expected I'd be there blowing glass. Like, it's just kind of crazy. Really? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that you're saying, like there are a select group of people in our industry that are brand new at this, that have amazing talent, And it just takes the right person to show them the right thing to be like, holy shit. And then that person is just blowing everybody's fucking minds.
Right.
You know, like Joe Peters, that dude Lying Glass, that's his apprentice or was his apprentice for a while. I was seeing this guy's work coming out. I'm like, God, it looks like Joe P's work. And then I started doing some research and I talked to Joe himself about it, and he was kind of giving me some insights to him. And this kid's got a lot of fucking talent. And it's natural, raw talent. And this dude just happened to find a medium he was able to get his voice out with. You know, so, and I get that. But again, as an artist, it's fun to be creative and expressive and want to just like make the sprint instead of the marathon. And you're a great example, dude, especially the fact that you run marathons. This is a marathon. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a fucking quick race unless you're in a competition and you've got 3 minutes to make something, you know, get her done. But in the meantime, you got to take it step by step by step and really learn everything. And then eventually, you know, you're going to learn. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like the idea of being a master, you know, like I've mastered some techniques, but I'm nowhere near a master. And I've been doing this for 17 years. Mm-hmm. I may not ever be a master. Maybe in my next lifetime, I might get close to it, you know, but you know, it's just, I don't know. I'm all over the place right now, but in my head thinking about this shit, but it's like, you know, it's so funny just seeing it. But I think the worst again about this whole thing is that social media has kind of fucked it up for it's a huge benefit, but it's also fucked it up for a lot of us, and not us, you and me, but like those that are getting started, because again, they have this backing of people that are like, yeah, man, that's awesome. That's amazing. How much, you know, it's $1,000 and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know, and it inflates what's there.
Yeah. And it's tough. The whole pricing thing is tough in general, but yeah, back to what you were saying about kind of taking the small steps and not trying to run the marathon right away. That's so important. Like I said in the beginning of this year in 2016 that I'm going to attempt to find my voice a little bit, because in art, like you got to take those first steps of just learning the medium before you can ever create a character or your voice or whatever. And you were talking about the sculptural thing. I think having that clay sculptural thing is huge, because that's not something I always drew as a kid, and I could draw and sketch and whatever, and I was an art minor in school, but you know, with the sculpting thing, it's not something I know well. And so the idea of removing or adding glass or, you know, to create this figure is not something I'm knowledgeable about at all. And that's why I've really stuck to shapes and, you know, trying to use color work well, because I think I have an eye for that. But this year is kind of going to be my attempt to learn a little bit more of that sculptural side, learn a little bit more of finding my voice and what my image is. And I don't know if you've seen, but I started this Storm Cloud series. And that's just kind of like a variation of just basic shapes that I've been doing for a while, like a really tight twisted line work tube, which makes the cloud. And then kind of playing off the same thing that everybody does with the drippy stuff. But as opposed to doing like oil drip or honey drip or whatever, I'm just making them my Storm Cloud series, and I turned that into a tube. And so that's been my first, after 5 years, the first thing that I've said, like, this is my thing. This is a little bit of my voice and my image. And I don't know if that I'm there yet with the idea and the concept, but that's the thing, is I think a lot of people, they'll start to try, and that's the marathon, is figuring out your voice in this industry. And a lot of people are trying to find that voice right away, and it just doesn't get translated well because they don't know the medium yet, and they don't have an understanding of just how to work with the material. But that's what I've been trying to do, is what I'm trying to say, is just really get to know the material for the past 5 years. And that really just means, you know, making hollow vessels, making nice shapes, you know, doing straight Marias and, you know, clean line work and all those things, and nice lip wraps and encalmos and things like that, more of the traditional stuff, which is still what I am attracted to as far as what I like in glass. You know, I like glass that looks like glass. I've never been a huge fan of a lot of copper work, a lot of outside frit, or, you know, those kind of sandblasting too much, just because I love the optics of glass, and especially when you make a nice shape. So that's really what I've strived for in the past 5 years, is just to learn that style.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm the same way. Like that's why I like using clear so much, just because of the glass. You know, it's just so pretty seeing that shit. You know,
for sure,
it's amazing. Yeah, I'm actually going through your page right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I definitely am digging the work you're doing with the drips on them. They're fun.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how they'd be taken. The age show in January was the first time I had any of that Storm Cloud series stuff. But it was really well received. I took maybe 20 pendants. I just do a pendant with it, and then I do the Storm Cloud tubes, and all the pendants got scooped up pretty fast. And I've been taking orders on the Storm Cloud tubes. People have been liking those a lot. So yeah, I think it's going well. I made the two of the drips in the middle of those Storm Clouds function. So there's a Jesus seal in between them, and so when they function, the smoke will go through two of the rain drips, which I think will create some cool effects. And then I hope to be able to design a recycler out of it eventually too, because I have smaller clouds that are non-functional that go around the main one. But I think that I could make those small ones functional so that they act as the drain for the recycler. But again, that's one of those things where I haven't even really delved into. Chris Ahalt and I made like a double-headed elephant recycler, and he's got a lathe, so that was a little bit more suitable for us to learn that idea and technique. But that was a learning experience for both of us, just learning those seals and doing that sort of high scientific work. It's just not something I've tried to do yet, because again, it takes a lot of knowledge just on the scientific side of things, and
Yeah.
I don't want to screw it up, and like
Dude.
put something out in the world that doesn't work right,
Yeah, yeah, and that was part of my issue getting started when I was first going. Was like I would try to designate one day a week to have like a fuck off experiment day, and I knew I was going to probably waste a bunch of material and glass and stuff. But in my head, I was like, oh, I'm wasting money in this shit. I'm struggling as it is, and I can't experiment right now. But it should be the exact opposite. Don't be afraid to go in there and waste material, even if you do it all in clear. And like you just got to learn and practice.
Yeah.
And it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take gas and glass to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. But I'm going through Chris's Instagram right now, dude. Holy fucking shit! You guys got to check this guy's thing out. His Instagram is he's Chaw Glass, but it's Chris Ahalt, Ahalt. Unbelievable. I've seen his work down south and down in Miami. His balloons that he does.
Yeah, man, he's on a whole nother level, and he's a great example of that, one of those guys who's been doing it for a long time, but he practiced Venetian vessel work for years, and he jokes about it all the time, how now all he does is sculptural stuff. But once he started doing those balloon animals, he'd done them for a long time, non-functional, just as art, and he had them in galleries and everything, and he just started making them into pipes. And we actually shared a booth at that January Age show, and it was his first pipe show, and it was just crazy to watch, like all the glass blowers that have been following him come over and talk to him and just bow down to him, where a lot of the pipe industry, the buyers, they don't know who he is yet. It's really funny to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's going to blow up as far as the pipe scene goes. He's going down to do a show at the Maid Gallery soon and stuff. But yeah, he's just an incredible sculptor.
Yeah, I've seen him and Ethan Windy.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, killer. Yeah, I need to get him on the show.
Oh yeah, he's a great dude too. He's
just to talk about, because the realism that goes into his sculptural work. When you go into like with salt, for instance, like that heavy carving that you do. Mm-hmm. Glass does not like that shit at all.
Right.
And that's and like looking at the recycler you guys did with the elephant, it's like the function on that is so unique, but just the look, the look of the two of you guys going together, I think it's a great example of like a true collaboration where you're taking two different artists, techniques, and styles, and then merging them into one type of thing. I think with our industry, it's one of the unique things that we have going for us is the fact that we can collab and we can take our voices and make a song out of it, with each other in a sense. It's so unique. I think it's cool too that I think it's kind of spawned like some painters that we have in our community that do some kind of like dab art, I'll call it in a sense, that are doing like collaborative paintings now that based on, influence from the glass industry.
Yeah, I've actually seen some tattoo artists do collab work too, which is something I've thought about. It's another one of my interests and passions is tattoo art, but I always wondered why more people don't do that. It's partially probably because of proximity and cost and those different things, but yeah, it'd be so cool to see some different tattoo artists work together on pieces, and get both of those techniques going in one piece of art.
Yeah.
Just like the painting stuff, yeah.
Do you actually tattoo do tattoos and stuff?
I don't do them. I'm just a collector.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of interesting you're saying that. Years and years ago, I opened up a gallery down here in St. Pete with a friend of mine, and the long-term goal was we're going to call the gallery Collaboration, and it was going to be a gallery dedicated to the art of collaboration. And we had a publication that was going to go through with it. We were sharing it with an artist at the time, and this guy was a complete cocksucker, so it all fell through. Like, I just pulled out of it as fast as I could. But it's still something that I'm passionate about because I think, you know, it's the idea was to take different mediums and merge them together and make them work together. If they not make them, but you know, if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And you know, take a metal artist with a wood artist and see what you guys come up with, and then have a show based on that kind of idea. Yeah. But you don't really see it, you know. As my ignorance, I should say, I don't see it that much. With social media, it's given us a chance to really explore more of the arts out there. But it's really heavily involved with our industry, which I think is badass. And there's people that don't like it necessarily. I think it's one of the coolest things that we can do as a glass artist is to collab with each other. This episode is also brought to you by Green Flash Glass. Green Flash Glass is a small family-owned, Florida-based business crafting a high-quality production line of tubes. They say their goal is to grow organically. When you call their number, you speak to one of the owners.
The guts to maybe
Mom and Pop Shop is producing a line of glass that is efficient and simple, with clean lines, strong welds, and good feng shui. With over 25 years of combined experience in glass blowing, these guys are in it for the long haul. These deadheads are grateful for their current clients and are accepting new wholesale customers. Killer, man. For the month of March, they're offering 20% off all orders for new wholesale customers. Go follow these guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It will mean a lot to them. They're at Green Flash Glass everywhere you go. Independent, high-quality craftsmanship, honest actions, bona fide. Green Flash Glass. All right, man. Well, let's get to crashing and killing here. Something fun I like to do, and that's a quick fire round. We've got 6 questions for you, and give me a 30 to 6 second answer on them. If you want to expound upon the answers, you can as well. So if you're ready, man, let's go into it. And the first question I always like to ask, which is always a difficult one, is because there's so many of us out there, if you could work with any living glass artist that you haven't worked with yet, who is it and why?
Oh, man. So many. I haven't worked with nearly anybody yet, but man, I'd probably have to take it back to the origins and say Adam G. or Adam Graffis. You know, he's the reason I started blowing glass. I owe pretty much everything to him, and I know he's not doing all that much these days. But definitely, I would say if I ever got to work with him and just hang out with him and collab with him again someday, that'd be awesome.
Hell yeah! What are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Oh, I'm definitely liking all the new transparents. Like I said, I like the look of glass, so the transparent glass is a huge draw for me. So love the purple lollipop, raindrop. Huge fan of aqua azul. That's such an awesome stable color. Lemon drop in the crucible tube pulled stuff form. I'm not a fan of the rod, but the tubing's awesome.
Hey, dude, just a quick second. I'm getting getting that static again.
Oh, really? Somebody just texted me. I wonder if it had something to do with that. Still hearing it?
Nope.
Huh, I think that might be it.
Unless are you shuffling your feet or something maybe? I don't know. Maybe your mic's just like super sensitive.
Yeah, I'm not moving at all. But.
Huh. Weird. Maybe just sit really still for 5 minutes. Which is impossible for me. Okay, sorry, I didn't interrupt you there. So,
oh, no problem.
So, yes, you're saying about the crucible colors.
Oh yeah, so the lemon drop tubing, and then I think I got one more. I will say, pink lollipop. That's one of my favorite to use.
Hell yeah! If you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, what is it?
Tink. I'd say tink is the best way it sounds.
Cool. What is your worst injury in the studio?
Ooh, they probably all happened when I first started, as far as burns and cuts and stuff. Nothing super bad. I had when I was going to drop down to blow into a tube, my support hand, I was kind of in a vertical position. My left hand, my support hand just let go for some reason, and the whole glob of glass that was in the middle for my bubble fell into my left hand. That was pretty nasty just because it covered so much of my hand as far as the burn and the blister. But I'd say probably the most painful is sticking your hand in the flame. There's something different about a glass burn as opposed to a flame burn. I think the flame burn hurts a lot more. So probably a good flame burn across my right hand once. And then most annoying, I would say, is cutting my lip. I'm not very good at polishing my blow tubes, and I'll cut my lip and it just doesn't stop bleeding because there's no way to get a Band-Aid on it or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. If I've got guests coming to the shop, I'll make sure that like I have some for them that are polished. But yeah, I never polish my blowpipes. And habitually, I don't do it because I know that end has not been heated before. Like all my punnies, all my tubes, I don't polish my ends just because it just lets me know that end is cold.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's smart.
Which is, yeah, it is, but then it's not because I cut myself. Yeah. I don't burn myself, but I cut myself. Oh, man. Yeah, and the worst, dude, like I remember one time with the blowpipe thing, the glass had like a little nick on it, and I was just like rotating in my mouth, and it happened to like catch the inside of my lip and like brought it with the blowpipe kind of thing as I was rotating my mouth, you know? Yeah, I was like, I pierced the inside of my lip, and I had to like back it up to get it out of there to make sure, you know what I mean? One of those dumb early on things, yeah. So,
yikes.
Yeah, no fun. So in the studio, do you watch TV, listen to the radio, or do you do both?
Oh man, I'm a little bit across the board. I'm a huge podcast person, but I run out of episodes a lot. So of my favorites anyway, I listen to a lot of Radio Lab and This American Life. And I've pretty much listened to everything full length on those. Also Serial Podcast was a huge favorite of mine last season. So when I run out of those, I'll put music on, but I often get sick of my own music. So I'll switch over to maybe like stand-up comedy. I'm a big fan of listening to Louis C.K. or Aziz Ansari.
Heck yeah.
While I'm working, it's good to get a good laugh in there while you're working.
Yeah, I've been on that same kind of role myself, going through Netflix and finding stand-up comedy stuff.
Yeah.
It's good shit. Listen to Tim Ferriss at all?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, yeah. Great podcast, man. The Tim Ferriss Show.
Okay.
Definitely. I recommend it to everybody. Check it out. He wrote a book called The 4-Hour Workweek.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. All right, man, so my last and final question for you, which is always a fun one. If you were stranded on an island, it could be any island of your choice, that had a glass studio on there, and you were only supplied with your gases, your kiln, and your torch, and you had to make something, what 5 items would you bring?
Well, I've listened to this before, so I'm going to say first off my glasses.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, my glasses, I would probably bring tweezers, 6mm punties, some clear tubing, probably 50mm, just because it's so versatile. You can stretch it down if you need to. And then, what was that, 3?
No, that's
4?
actually 4, yep.
4. And then I would bring maybe a pair of jacks.
Cool.
Cup jacks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good shit. Yeah, it's always the glasses thing is always funny because I think we're so used to wearing them all the time. It's just one of those things we forget.
Yeah.
You know, like I think I've lived my life through a tint of some sort for the last 17 years, whether it's been on the torch or driving around with my sunglasses on.
Yeah, I just changed. I wore shade 5s for a long time, and they were lenses that were made for frames that I had sent in. I think it was from Philips or something, but they kind of had this weird optic thing going on. They were fine if I was looking at the flame, but if I looked up at all, it kind of felt like I was cross-eyed, not from looking at the flame for too long, but it was just like the optics were off on the 2 lenses or something. And then it sort of like put a lot of strain on my eyes. After a long day of working, I would not be able to see straight real good. So I recently switched over to some different factory made ones, and they've been, and shade 3s too, which have been a lot nicer to work with.
Yeah, I think the shade 5s are too dark for what we do. It definitely is going to cause you to have eye strain because you can't see anything else except for your bright flame.
Yeah.
Unless you're working like quartz or something like that, then you need them because of the brightness of the glass. But yeah, I agree.
Sure.
100%. Yeah. Well, cool, man. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you, and especially because you've only been doing this for 5 years, and definitely appreciate you sharing your experience and some good insights to your experiences with the trade shows and just glass in general. So definitely appreciate having you on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This is super fun.
Hell yeah, man. So before we let you go, though, if you want to give us any kind of parting piece of advice, and then also where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace.
Sure. Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of things as far as advice for new glass blowers, but I think really what it comes down to is just being humble and taking as much learning experience as possible. That's something I haven't done, is taking classes, and like you've said, I recommend doing that. I think it'd be super helpful to just get some tips. There's probably some bad habits you can create if you don't take classes, and I maybe have some of those, but yeah, just learn the material. Don't try to sell stuff right away. Make a life situation so you don't have to sell stuff right away if that's possible. Um, yeah, and then as far as ways to find me, social media, Instagram is where I really post everything. It's just at Crux Glass, CRUX. Um, yeah, and then that all links to Facebook too if you don't have Instagram, but I think most people do at this point. Yeah, and then I'm doing that Michigan Glass Project. If you're coming to that, come say hi. Yeah, that's probably it.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again for coming on, and hope you all enjoy this episode with Adam, Mr. Crux Glass out there in the world, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.